In November of 2023, the Swell Pod took a 10-day journey across 5 states, traveling 3,580 miles with one challenge in mind.
And that challenge was to interview 100 pleasantly rebellious humans to uncover deep truths about what it takes to create something that has never existed before, challenge the status quo, maybe even change the world.
This is the Kiln Road Trip, created and produced by the Swell Pod.
In partnership with Kiln, Moterra Camper Vans, and sponsored by Taurus.
I'm Spencer McKeown.
And I'm Josh Taylor, and together we're the co-hosts of the Swell Pod and your guides on the Kiln Road Trip. Follow along on the journey.
Be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow the Swell Pod on social media, and subscribe to your YouTube channel at, you guessed it, the Swell Pod.
This is interview 55 of the Kiln Road Trip, and today we're at Kiln Boulder in Colorado talking with Stephanie Trees. Stephanie is the co-founder and chief strategy officer at Agathos Health. Agathos delivers clinical metrics to individual physicians in a lightweight mobile experience that shows them how their practice patterns compare to those of their peers. This piques their curiosity and sparks self-determined change that reduces cost of care and improves patient outcomes. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. We hope you enjoy.
Stephanie, welcome to the Swell Pod and the Kiln Road Trip. Thanks for being one of the 100.
Thanks for having me.
This is a last minute edition, right?
Yeah, this morning.
Who told you about it and was like, yo, you should really come on?
Nina did.
Okay.
I think we're one of the companies that are based locally in Boulder that has the founders here. So she's like, you need to do this.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, she's great, isn't she?
She's great. The energy is palpable.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why we're here, frankly.
Fantastic.
We're extroverts and we feed off of energy.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll ask that later on about the Kiln.
It.
But tell us, just introduce yourself to the audience and your full name, what you do, what you're passionate about, and how you found it.
Well, that's a lot.
That
okay.
I'll forget that last
And
bit.
I got to be concise. So I'm Stephanie Trees.
Yeah.
I'm one of the co-founders and the chief strategy officer of Agathos. We are a health tech startup. We've been around for 8 years now. And we were founded to make data more accessible to physicians on their clinical practice. The problem that we were solving is maybe shockingly to those who are outside of healthcare or medicine, but doctors don't have that much information on how they practice medicine across many patients, just with the patient sitting right in front of them. And often they're missing key information on, do they order more labs or imaging, or are their patients spending more time in the hospital than their colleagues? They just had no idea. And we noticed that gap, and we noticed how much physicians control healthcare dollars and healthcare outcomes in the US, and said, we need to actually design a product that makes data accessible for this audience and is designed for them. So there's a lot more to it than maybe we'll get into, but we're in a complicated space, but bringing some impact to US healthcare.
That's great. And what led? So what was your history before that, or that led up to that moment where you kind of said, "Hey, we've noticed this pain point, we're going to address it." But like, what came the previous 10 years or 20 years?
Well, the founding team, we met in college.
Yeah.
And I guess 10 years later, in all of our respective jobs, one of them is actually my husband too, another college friend. We were all in either consulting or on the technology side of healthcare, and saw a lot of the pain points that doctors felt. They were either looking in research articles to learn about how they practice medicine, and they were frustrated with documenting data in the electronic health record, and they weren't getting a lot out of what they were putting into it. And so there was a general growing discontent that we saw. And I think we just kind of found this problem space and started interviewing as many doctors as we could to figure out how to design a product for them.
Wow.
Yeah. And 8 years later, we have hopefully continuing to be successful in our business model, but we've iterated a lot over the past 8 years, and something we can maybe discuss a bit further.
Absolutely.
So what were some of the challenges or these moments that caused you to pivot and iterate, and how did you react to those? And how did the product evolve?
Yes. So we first started out, I think a lot of companies start out, they find some initial customers, and that defines a bit of the product direction. So our initial customers were in the hospital space. They were hospital-based physicians. And so we initially designed for that. And then we realized that we had too small of a market. And so we started to expand our reach into emergency medicine and then into primary care. And then COVID really hurt us as a company and pretty much every company in healthcare. And so we realized that our price point was actually too high and too low at the same time. We were able to like pivot a bit and like design a more enterprise upmarket product that was a lot more expensive and was a lot more inclusive of all physicians across all specialties. And at the same time, we actually designed a way kind of cheaper, lighter weight product that we just launched earlier this year. And I think that in the midst of COVID, we had to do layoffs like a lot of other startups. And then we finally have found, I feel like, our sweet spot, having a broader product portfolio. And so that has led us to now, I think I'm happy to say that there's just a lot of interest that, you know, coming out of COVID and the economy starting to go in the right direction, we're feeling like encouraged that we found a better product market fit even after 8 years.
No, congratulations.
Well, we're still on the journey.
It's on the journey, but it's those moments.
Died. And that's what I said to companies, like, just manage your costs well enough so that you don't die, so you have the opportunity to make these micro pivots to kind of change your product direction to meet the market as it evolves.
Yeah.
Can you take me through like maybe a specific use case that can help our audience really understand the value of let's say that solution that you're providing?
Sure. So our user audience are doctors, but we sell to healthcare systems or large physician groups that have to manage the cost of care delivered and the quality of that care delivered. So what our goal is to have our physician users to engage with their data. They just get a text once a week, and it's on one metric about their practice. I'll give some examples, like the amount of opioids that you prescribe to patients leaving the emergency room, or the number of CTs that you use compared to your colleagues, or if you're in primary care, the % of your patients that have annual breast cancer screenings, right? A lot of these metrics are things that help healthcare entities to track like quality of care delivered and also tie directly to financial outcomes for these entities. So healthcare is complicated in the US, but the good news is that at least on primary care side, you're being incentivized financially to have better quality outcomes for patients. And so we help to improve those through the engagement with our data.
Are some of these insights that are provided, are they also inclusive of the general, like the entire base that's using, so it's identifying trends as well, like ranking and understanding how you stack up against other doctors?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we're showing, it's a bit challenging for people at first, but we're showing physicians how they compare to their colleagues who they know and practice with on a day-to-day basis. So it's kind of, we're providing a peer benchmark. And this is for humans in general, right? To know how people perform, even say as a salesperson or as a product manager amidst your colleagues, like you're going to learn from folks who do things similar to you. And so that's actually a mechanism that people are learning. If they're an outlier, perhaps they're actually a lot more successful than their colleagues about having patients get their screenings annually. What are they doing differently? So that's the types of kind of conversations that this data spurs, and essentially creating more of a team-based environment by using individual data to do that. So a lot of like the behavioral science principles and stuff around, you know, peer-based motivation and incentives. We're kind of fascinated by what causes people to do what, how.
Are there things that do you have a follow-up?
No, go ahead.
Do you, I mean, I can imagine that's very motivational. It's also could be deemed as
uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable to some. It depends on their mindset, I suppose, and how used they are for people to see some of that data. So maybe either comment on that or on how you overcame that, but also are there things that you discovered that you didn't expect, and what were they?
So that is the question that we're asked every time we talk about showing unblinded data, as we call it. And the answer that I give is you have to do it in the right way. When you present data, in people's names, you first have to know that the data is trustworthy, and we take a lot of care to that. But you also need to present it and say, like, this is non-punitive. Like, this isn't going to negatively impact your performance financially, or you're not going to get fired over this data. Like, it's important that the people who are leading this project say, like, we're doing this for this purpose.
Right.
So I agree that data can be used in bad ways. And so you have to shepherd how it's used. It's also important that I think, to going back to that, like, most people who use it, it's within like a group setting, and it's not like this is publicly available, right? This is something that people are using in a team setting to try and improve their team. So it's not shared widely. It's just shared within the team.
So as long as the team feels psychologically safe,
Exactly.
we say many will be.
Yeah.
Then they're good.
And I don't think it's that much different. Like, even within our own company and our sales team, we have performance metrics, like, what you're doing amongst our sales team that I lead. And, we have transparently looking at how many new client meetings do you have. And that data is compared. And if the goal is coaching and sharing best practices, then that does help the team move forward. And I think it's very transferable to medicine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, Chief Strategy Officer, what
does that really mean?
I'm just interested, I guess. Yeah. So, like, because you just launched that product earlier this year, you said. Help me understand kind of what you're looking at now, and then looking into the next couple of years as well.
Sure. So, in the executive team, I'm one of 4. We have the CEO, president, chief technology officer, and my role, chief strategy officer. And I'm interested in launching new markets, kind of you can get from the role. I also work on business development, and I lead the customer success team. So it's a bit of a hodgepodge of things, and that's standard. And, we're a Series A startup, so not too uncommon. But I am most interested in, again, like, growth and product market fit, as I mentioned, and really bringing more, healthcare entities into the Agathos fold and helping us to increase our impact. And so for me, we have pretty ambitious goals for next year. We have, OKRs, a lot of companies do, and there's a big sales component to it, and, market validation elements of what I do. So I am just looking forward to having as many calls as I can in these upcoming months with the pipeline of entities that I have, and, growing the business is, the goal of every startup, but we're in growth mode. So
that's cool.
That's our goal, is to just really expand our customer base.
It's got to be exciting right now too, especially as you mentioned, there's a lot of interest in what you guys have just released, right? So it's just got to feel like there's a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot of forward momentum. Yeah.
It is. It's exciting to see that it feels like the economy is starting to move in the right direction, and that healthcare systems that were really, really bogged down and distracted by COVID have now emerged out of that. Some of them emerged out of that and stronger, and they can actually focus on doing new innovative things to improve patient care. And that's also encouraging to see from the outside looking in, to say that, like, hospitals and practices aren't just continuing to fail. I think there's a perception that they did well financially during COVID, but, like, every health system was just in a really bad spot. And now they're kind of emerging out of that. And because we sell to them, we are kind of beholden and also on, like, the upward trajectory.
I'm interested in along the journey, any mistakes made, lessons learned?
No, none at all.
You need to say what mistakes.
What mistakes?
She's got a lot going through her head right now, right?
Oh, what can I share in a public setting?
Yeah, that's kind of why I left it a little open. Yeah.
I think I mentioned this before, but company, like, fundamentals, and I wish our CEO was here to talk more about that. It's not as much my space, but figuring out, like, how much it costs to deliver a product and just managing your costs, I think, is something that is just very challenging to do in technology, because tech costs, they grow exponentially sometimes, and it's just really expensive to staff engineers and to, like, build a viable business. So I think that along the way, a lot of the mistakes has been around just figuring out how to, like, what to invest in and what not to. And I
Yeah.
think we're in a good spot now, but hiring and managing
Yeah.
company expenses, that's always been like the hardest part for us. I think I'm hitting myself that we didn't find this kind of pivot earlier
Yeah.
than like 7 years in. But sometimes you don't learn until you're in a really challenging spot and you're forced to. So
Yeah.
I guess some of the advice I have would be, give yourselves enough runway to not run out of money, because you can only really fundraise when you just had like a major growth moment. And so I think a lot of startups have struggled to manage their costs long enough to be able to like make it through these tough financial periods and be able to pivot and come out of it with like a better product or business model. So I think that's the don't run out of money. I don't know if that's actionable, but
Well,
it's kind of about like not over hiring quickly or just like, I don't know. I've seen in the tech world, just the mass layoffs to me have felt like a response to maybe what was some like over hiring or like fast growth, unbridled, without like the market, demand to make up for it.
Before we get into the rest of the episode, we want to thank the partners and sponsors who made the Kiln Road Trip possible. The Kiln Road Trip is brought to you by Kiln. Kiln is a boutique co-working and flex office community with 13 locations in 6 states across the West, dedicated to providing innovative workspaces that empower your team to thrive. Whether you're a solo visionary or an enterprise-level team of up to 100, Kiln transcends being merely a place to work. It's a hub for learning and connecting with like-minded professionals that will make you and your team love where you work.
And if you haven't stepped foot inside a kiln yet, you really need to. On this road trip, we visited every single location, and trust us when we say once you see these beautifully designed spaces, meet the talented team, and connect with fellow members, you won't want to work anywhere else.
Locations include Utah, Colorado, Idaho, Oregon, California, and Arizona. And they're growing too, with multiple locations set to open in 2024.
Yeah, so be sure to check out the kiln locations nearest you by booking a tour at kiln.com and answer Swell in the question, how did you hear about us? Once you complete the tour, you'll be entered into a competition where you could win a 1-year membership, their club membership at Kiln.
Yep, you heard that. That's kiln.com, book a tour, and be sure to mention Swell in the question, how did you hear about us?
The Kiln Road Trip is also brought to you by Moterra Camper Vans, a luxury camper van rental company for iconic road trips. Their top-of-the-line vans are available at 7 locations located near America's best outdoor adventure destinations. They have consistently earned the highest customer ratings in the industry, making Moterra camper vans your gateway to adventure without sacrificing on comfort or service.
That's true, and initially we wanted to take this journey in a 1960s VW bus, but thankfully we found Moterra instead. With 3 van options, we took the Pop Top Classic, which sleeps 4 and is best for those who want to maximize floor space and storage. This was critical for us because it needed to sleep the entire crew, we needed space to edit, and we were traveling with large amounts of equipment, luggage, and, other goodies that we picked up along the way.
And this van took us through all 3,580 miles of the trip. Super comfortable and sweet to drive.
And actually, Moterra offers fully planned itineraries if you'd rather leave the planning to someone else.
Visit gomoterra.com/swell. That's gomoterra.com/swell.
This episode is also brought to you by Taurus. Taurus is leading the charge in home energy storage. Taurus makes it easy to achieve energy independence and a greener tomorrow. The Taurus station provides everything you need to generate clean power, efficiently store electricity, and easily manage your energy use.
And installing a Taurus station offers plenty of benefits, including save money on your electricity bill,
also ensure energy security with backup power during outages,
reduce carbon emissions with renewables.
You can also automate EV charging and HVAC systems with 100% renewables.
And enjoy unrivaled system monitoring and support.
If you like the sound of those benefits, get a quote to build your Taurus station in less than 30 seconds. Super easy at taurus.co. That's TORUS.co. Now, let's get back to the episode.
That's a great point. We've heard some people say being more careful about what to which features to deliver, which ones are going to be paid for, which ones maybe aren't necessary now, like being really more careful with that. And that's all about managing, the finances, which you just talked about.
That's a connected thing about how much are you influenced by your early customers wanting you to also build stuff for them that might not have broader market applicability. I think we've struggled with that a little bit, perhaps not as many as some, but that's always an area where you just can spend a lot of money and not get paid enough for that. Yeah, that happens to a lot of companies for sure.
Right. Last question. Oh, sorry. Go on. Kiln.
Go for it.
So tell us about Kiln. What difference does it make? Why do you use Kiln?
During COVID, I think most startups were working remotely, actually. And for us, at least for the founding team, we realized it wasn't really working for us. Yeah. And we were sick of being at home, and like many people, and that we worked better in a setting where there's a lot of action, not too much action. It's not loud, but there is energy, as I was mentioning at the beginning. And so only a couple of us are here, but Andrew and I come every day, and we've actually found that it creates more life-work separation in a good way. We have young kids, and we drop them off before work, and then it's allowed us to not have like work and life bleed together, which happened, I think, to many people during the pandemic in a way that really impacted mental health. So for us, it's all about like kind of working like really intensely while we're here, and then going home and actually spending quality family time and doing active things on the weekends, since we live in Boulder, and that's what we do. So I think that Kiln's the right environment for us. Yeah,
great. I mean, that's very, very practical. I want to ask more, but we're run out of time, haven't we? But did you have another last one?
Yeah. So you've given some advice 2 questions ago, you know, but specifically, we ask a question to everybody that comes in here, and we'd be interested in your thoughts and your feedback on this one. So, what does it take to create a movement, create something that's never existed before?
Big question.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe this isn't the answer you're looking for, but I think it's more of the personality features that I think are needed in founding teams. I think it takes grit, which is an obvious one, but I also think the skills that people need to be able to stay in it long enough for like a movement to happen is a very proactive mindset of like just trying to creatively problem solve as much as possible and not get discouraged as things happen, but to use that as an opportunity to just throw a million ideas on the table and just don't even care if they suck. Just think like, just come up with ideas, just keep thinking and keep trying to iterate. I think I have been encouraged, actually. In the early days, we listened to that podcast. No, great. Now I'm going to forget the How I Built This.
Who built this?
In the early days, we would just like listen to all of these stories about how people built companies and how challenging it was. And I think we started to get this almost like collective understanding of just pushing through and resilience and just thinking creatively and learning from business generally, even outside of our industry. So I think this like resilience, creativity, and just sticking with it is applicable for business or for social movements and applicable in relationships. I mean, it's kind of the skill set that I look for in hiring is like, are you self-motivated, proactive? Yeah. Are you like kind of willing to stick with it and just come up with ideas and not too attached to them and just like see if you can make it through? And so I just, that's my answer. I don't know if that helps you.
It's fantastic.
That's good.
But if you could find people that I could hire that have those qualities, let me know.
Yeah, because people are listening.
They might reach out.
And move to Boulder because I want to work with you locally.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a great city.
Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Kiln Road Trip. Be sure to follow along on the rest of the journey, and you can do that in 2 ways. 1, subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, or maybe even watching on YouTube, and follow along on all of our social media platforms, whether you're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or TikTok, at the Swell Pod. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next episode.